It's been 3 years since we were discharged from the NICU, but I'm finally ready to talk about our journey. Once upon a time, our boys left the NICU, but the NICU never left us. After the newborn fog had cleared, I realized that I came home with some pretty heavy baggage. And not only was I unsure how to unpack it, but open it. So here we are now, nearly 3 years later. But before I talk about our story, I want to first briefly grieve with the parents who never get to bring their babies home. In NICU life, you hope for the best, but prepare for the worst. It'll push you beyond your limits and show you how deeply you can love and hurt. When you're in it, you're in survival mode. It's like a never-ending fight or flight, like a dream or a nightmare. We try so hard to remain positive and see the glass half full. But such a persistent positivity nearly pushed me into a state of repression and denial. No matter how painful the memories are, we can't just try to bottle them up and forget them, or pretend like it singularly wasn't our most life-changing event. Once we made it out of the NICU, we never wanted to look back. But ultimately, that wouldn't allow us to heal. And trying to repress those memories surely made everything much worse. And I'll admit that it took me a little while to get to the place where I no longer cry every time I share our story. But truly, the most healing thing has been supporting other women going through it. Over the past year, I've gotten to connect with other pregnant mothers and NICU moms online, and we're so thankful that their story can inspire hope and faith. At 14 weeks, our boys were diagnosed with type 2 SIUGR, and by 17 weeks, we were told to selectively terminate or likely lose them both. Our doctors told us that we likely wouldn't even make it to 21 weeks. I spent 70 days on bed rest, and these boys stunned the doctors with their birth at 29 weeks. Our doctors told us in their career of over 20 years, they've never seen such an early grim diagnosis with such a successful outcome and with no medical intervention. But just because our story was successful doesn't mean we weren't left a little emotionally damaged. We spent 120 days in the NICU, and if you know that the NICU is an absolute roller coaster ride. And a part of me will never be able to forget what that state of survival was like. We were in the NICU during COVID. Though it was isolating back then, today there still isn't enough support, especially when it comes to life after NICU. For us, we were first-time parents, so not only are you returning to life as a parent, but you're trying to find your new normal after NICU. We all know the healing process can be a hard one, and so one of my first obstacles was turning off survival mode. At the time my boys were in the NICU, the Abbott and Similac formula recall had not yet happened, but that was the formula they were using to fortify my breast milk. They had thrown up so much so one of my boys was diagnosed with failure to thrive and fell into the 0.01 percentile. While one of the twins was discharged home with us, the other was sent upstate to a specialty NICU where they continued to try more formula fortifier. We ended up trying 7 different formulas in all. And they sent us home 2 days before Christmas as a gift, telling us they simply weren't sure what was going to make him better, but that it was more expensive for insurance for him to continue to live in the hospital. Thankfully, he didn't come home with oxygen, but only a feeding tube. And I forgot to mention, twin brother was sent home with congenital heart disease from saving his brother in utero. The boys' doctors wanted us to continue to try to find a formula that might work. When the vomiting continued, I gave them bottles of exclusively pumped breast milk and saw immediate improvement. And after the recall, it all finally made sense. But my babies were so happy and comfortable on just Express breast milk, so I realized I would have to pump for their entire first year. I always had dreams of breastfeeding, but my boys preferred the bottle so much so, due to their prematurity, I had to exclusively pump for 14 months in all. After going through one hard trial after another, I had a little bit of resentment towards God. I gotta be honest. But now I'm starting to wonder if God allows hard things like this to happen so that we can help each other in a way that we needed when we were going through it. But truly, my hope is to connect with more moms beyond my Facebook support groups. It can be hard to find the right support, but doing so is so important. Don't let your story become a burden, but let it be a mustard seed. For when it is sown, it grows up to become greater than all other plants in the garden. So no matter where you're at along your journey, how long you've been out of the NICU, especially if you're still there, or even if you're home now trying to find your new normal, and you will find it again, but try to give yourself as much grace as God does. Grieve it as much as you need so you're not afraid to share it, because one day it could be the story that changes somebody's life forever.